keep on reefing. Yes, people, what's good, and welcome back to the channel. So today we've got me and you got Darren. So
yeah,
Darren,
we're back again. We're back again. We are back with some gifts though this time.
so you some gifts here. So let's see what Darren's brought first. Yeah. So today we've got Oceamo Duo. So we've got the KH, yeah, and we've got the calcium. Yeah. So calcium here. Oh, can you see that? There we go. Calcium. And Darren's actually brought the ICP test for me. Yeah. So with the ICP test, bro, just to confirm and to send that off to Oceamo in Austria.
Yeah, well, you send it to a postal address here in the UK, and then it gets sent to Austria a couple of days later. I think there is a posting sequence that you can use if you post on a Tuesday, or I think it goes on a Thursday, and if you post on a Thursday, it goes on a Monday, something like that. I might have the days round, but yeah, it works on that. It's normally sort of 2 or 3 day turnover, to be fair, before you get your analysis sent back.
It's not too bad. Yeah, bro. So last time we ended talking about like starting dose of Reef Aquarium. We're gonna talk about lighting. Yeah.
We did.
Now, when I started this hobby, yeah, first thing I started with was LED with the Fluval M. Was it M16? Yeah, it was the M16. It had
Evo, wasn't it?
yeah.
Evo, yeah.
No, wasn't Evo. It was just the regular Fluval.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, the
that's
M60.
it. They had the
Yeah.
40 and the 60, didn't they? Yeah, I know what you're on about now.
That's it. It had the waterproof strip. You could
That's it.
Yeah, so that's my first introduction to LEDs, and in the end, I had to buy the timer as well, where you could put it on and turn it off. And then I got the um, what's it called? No, it wasn't a Radeon. It was the other one, the Hydra 26.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant LED, man. I got that from
Illuminations.
Portsmouth. Yeah, but it took a lot of learning and understanding how LEDs worked. But before we start speaking about LEDs, man, I got a hankering for starting a tank with metal halides, man. What's your experience with metal halides, bro?
To be fair, I love them, and a lot of people still do, and always will. When you make the comparison, I think, to like an LED fixture, there isn't really a comparison, but that's what we have in order to make comparisons, so that's why it happens. But for me, it's the most natural way of lighting an aquarium that will be as natural as you could get to the sunlight, realistically. Even when we were all keeping the halides and we were changing our bulbs every so many 6, 9, 12 months, there was always talk on the forums at the time of LED fixtures coming through the pipe work. I mean, initially some of it started with the cheap Chinese LEDs that they used to bring over.
Were they expensive though?
No, they were cheap as chips, and they were made cheaply as well.
Really?
Yeah, really badly. Almost dangerous, really, to be fair, if you took one apart and had a look inside it. But
I saw a lot of people. Someone said a lot of people used to take LEDs and make their own little fixtures back in the day. Some people still do that now, isn't it?
Yeah, you can do it. Yeah, definitely. Don't get me wrong. You can do it. You can change the LED individual, create your own wavelengths if you want to. If that's your forte. Back then, we just went with a trusted manufacturer's sort of makeup, the way they did them. But I can remember going to the shop for the first time and seeing an LED fixture. And at the time,
What was the first manufacturer? Someone said to me it was Ecotech, no? Or am I wrong?
there were a couple before that, and I can't remember who they were. And it was in the UK. It was a place called Reef Dreams in Winchester. And you could go in there on their SPS tray, for instance, and he had this little very small control panel with a couple of diodes on it. Not diodes, sort of control buttons.
Like little buttons and thing, yeah.
And you could change the channels and the spectrum, so you could enhance the corals while you were there looking at them to sort of see which one that was fluorescing.
It was like a basic thing, just a.
It was the light unit was nice. Can't think of the actual brand, what it was called. And then Ecotech, obviously, I think AI were the first ones, if I'm honest with you, Aqua Illuminations, and then Ecotech came very close afterwards. Again, I could be wrong.
If if you guys know who the first LED manufacturer was in the UK, just leave in the comments below, yeah?
Mm. Um, but that hit the marketplace and it just went boom. The fixture was smaller, it was
Mm.
easier, it was less intrusive over the system than hanging a big, 2 foot by 18 inch lighting unit in your living room, dining room, wherever you used to have your tank.
Mm.
With the missus complaining about what on earth's that thing hanging
Right.
from the ceiling, and you
It
used
has to
to.
be like so neat and sleek, innit?
It kind of is, because even then you used to have to go and buy your Arcadia wall-mounted brackets, this great big sort of 30-inch kind of silver or black bracket that you'd have to screw to the wall that would then have your hanging wire kit coming down, and then
So how big was this thing?
the units were probably on average about sort of 30 inches by maybe 15 inches. That's the Arcadia ones. You used to get ones that were just very basic with just a sort of a square reflected
Yeah.
sort of aluminium tin kind of
So
form.
so how did it work? So you had the ballast and the whole fixture, yeah, but
Yeah.
was there something to like a transformer to regulate the amount of power going to it?
So that was all down in the ballast area down there. So that was plugged into the wall. Then from that, the cable would then run up to where the bulb holder was, and then the bulb would obviously go into the holder, twisted it normally, or I think it was the H7 where you had the double ended, something like that, I believe it is, and you used to kind
Right.
of push them in normally with a cloth or something at the time, so you didn't want to put your oil handprints on the bulb because it can get quite warm and
Yeah. So
sometimes it can blow the bulb.
all right. So let me ask you a question about that, yeah? So you're so delicate with it, yeah, bro. Back in the day,
Mm.
how much were the bulbs back in the day compared to? Do they even still make the bulbs now?
Yeah, they do make the bulbs because obviously high pressure sodium lights are still used, whether it be on a commercial level, really, to be fair, nowadays. And again, public aquariums, zoos, but they use high pressure
I
sodium
bet it costs
bulbs.
a guap in it. How much you reckon?
It costs, I mean, the bulbs back then, for say you were running a 150 watt unit, you're looking about sort of 50, 60 quid, maybe every 9, 12 months. And then obviously, if you went up to a 250, a little bit more. And then the 400 watt bulb, which was single ended, um,
Yeah.
that was probably over £100 or so. And you were looking at sort of things like Ushio or Hamilton. Trying to think of
What about
some
the
of the
control?
others.
What about the
Warwick Ute used to
controllability?
do one. There was none. It was just
You just put it on.
you put it on. The only thing you did different when you changed your bulb, you tend to raise the light unit maybe 6 inches, 12 inches, so the corals had time to adjust to the
Mm.
new intense bulb. So you raised the light unit, or what people sometimes do, they used to shade it a little bit, create a bit of shading to
Yeah.
ease that intensity of that new bulb concept,
It's all right.
and lower it back down again.
Another look at this, yeah. So all right then. Old school, not calling you old school, yeah, but
Yeah,
old school
methods.
mid to halides, yeah,
Yeah,
right. So you know about them things. New school is LED, yeah.
yeah.
So for LEDs, you can check to see how much power is coming out. How did you check to see how much power? Like when I talk about the power and per and all of them buzzwords that's coming out from the metal halides. How did you monitor that? Is that with the 6 inches going up and down?
To be fair, you didn't monitor it. I mean, if at the time, if you were lucky enough to have a par meter, to be fair, the only things around then was the Apogee par meters that you could maybe get imported from America because they weren't really being sold in the UK, or people that would holiday in America would bring them back with them. No, there wasn't no real method.
Yeah,
You were literally just using the kind of standard information that was across the internet or some literature at the time that would say, hang your light 12 inches above the water surface, replace your bulbs every 6, 9, 12 months, however you did it, and let it get on with it. That was it.
would you go back to it though? Like, would
Yeah,
you
all
go?
day long. If you could compact the fixtures a bit, which to be fair, Arcadia did do. They were very good. They tried to slimline it, and they did slimline it very well. And it's not too intrusive looking light unit, to be fair. But you wouldn't want in your living room, 6 foot long reef tank with 4 luminarc reflectors with ballast humming away in the corner, and
Yeah,
making all this atrocious noise. It's not practical for this modern day world that we
That's
live
what I
in.
like about the LEDs, bro. So my wife has this joke saying like anytime it's nighttime and if my lights, for example, are really, really bright,
Yeah,
on the outside when you're walking out, you could see it's a massive blue room.
yeah,
So imagine, I'm just imagining the old school LED, not LEDs, the old school metal halides.
yeah.
If your schedule was during nighttime, the whole room is just going to be bright for the whole neighborhood, isn't it?
It was very bright, don't get me wrong, but it was more natural, so you didn't see that blue that you were just saying. I mean, like nowadays, like you just said, you can walk the dog, you can go out for a stroll, this, that, and the, and if you clock that blue hue in
You
someone's
know,
window,
innit?
you'll
You
think,
just
well,
know.
they're either reptiles or they're either a reefer. So, but then because it was a very natural looking light,
Mm.
you didn't really notice it, to be fair. You did when the blues came on in the evening, obviously, but during the day, I think you wouldn't really see it, to be honest. It didn't make an impact like
Nah.
that blue wavelength does in the evenings when you're sort of walking past people's homes and looking through and seeing, oh, there's a nice reef tank you got there. And what you got?
The thing is, yeah, I like LEDs. I like LEDs, and it's just the controllability of the LEDs. And I'll tell you why, yeah. So when you come over and use the spectrum on my tank and tell me about this spectrum is too high or
Yep.
we need to program it a bit better to maximize growth for this and that, that's exciting to me. So I kind of like that aspect of the hobby. However, as I'm going like getting aged in this hobby and seasoned in this hobby,
Hmm.
a lot of the old school methods are really appealing to me because I'm really like looking into metal halides, saying like if these guys back in the day used to just put this unit on their systems, and their growth used to be banging. I think what's this guy? Is it Coral Euphoria?
With
Something like that.
America in it, I think.
Yeah,
Is he a coral farmer, I believe?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He's got no, he's got the about 3 or 4 tanks in his front room, and he's got one with metal halides, and the growth on the color on that is just amazing. But I'm just thinking if that method works that well,
Hmm.
should I invest in metal halides? But LED for me personally is just easier. I mean, when people come to your living room, they see the LED. It looks
Hmm.
sleek.
Yeah.
The colors that you can utilize on there, certain if you want to show off your tank or something, you can just do it by the app on your phone. I think that just makes it really easier to use and more controllable to use.
It's one of those things that, like you said, it hit the market. It just rocketed.
Yeah.
People loved it. They loved the controllability. They loved the way that they could just show off a particular fluorescent color on a particular
Yeah,
cleaning.
yeah. I love
And
that about 'em.
when we had the halides, you couldn't do any of that. If you say for instance the electric went off or you turned the light off, you had to give it at least 5-10 minutes before you could reignite the bulb again to fire it back up.
What is that? Just
It wouldn't automatically come back on again because it has to fire the gas in the bulb again. So you have to let it cool down for a period of time in order for it to then reignite. So again, it's a very different way, but it was so much of a natural blanketed form of light. It wasn't a very narrow beam of
yeah.
light that was emitted from it. It was quite aesthetically pleasing to watch it as well because it gave you the natural ripple as well
Mm.
when you were looking on the sand, and you couldn't get any closer to nature in the way that you would if you were snorkeling
Yeah.
and you were looking at the ripples and you were looking at a very small section of a reef, for instance. It was the closest
A,
to it.
a lot of LEDs claim to give you that T5, not T5, but like that old school kind of look. I've had with the G4s here. Tell me, because you're running the G6 in it,
Mm.
Ecotech Radiance. The G4s, I found that when I had the diffuser on there, I didn't like the look. I just didn't like the look because yeah, you scuba dive.
Mm.
I've lived in the Caribbean for quite a while, and when you're underwater, you actually see those like disco ball effects or that color effects under the water. I'm
It
always
is a
like,
ripple. It's
yeah,
more
like
of
a
a
ripple.
channel ripple, whereas
Yeah,
with the
yeah, yeah.
LEDs, it's kind of like this sort of diffused, horrible kind of. At the very beginning, it was a disco ball effect because you could almost see the color channels on the substrate when they first came to market, and they weren't blending very
Mm.
well. But even now, it's when I see say ripples, it's normally like constant lines of ripples when you see
Yeah,
it in the ocean naturally. With the halides, that gives you that with the halides, to be
naturally.
fair. Yeah, definitely. With the LEDs, it's kind of like a blurred murmur. It just sort of kind of just constant. It doesn't change because obviously it hasn't got the influence from the water at the top, sort
Yeah.
of mirroring its effect. But yeah, it's a very natural looking way of reefing. And again, the corals used to respond fantastically well to it. And not saying they don't to LEDs.
What
It
kind
took
of
a little
corals?
bit of
Is it
time.
SPS?
All corals,
All of them.
all of them. Yeah, all of them just naturally. Yeah, everything would grow like wildfire.
But all right, I think this question, yeah, or this topic, I think people want to know the costing, bro. The costing of LEDs. I realized that certain LED fixtures I checked before COVID till now, there was certain price, and now an average of £200 on top of what they cost.
Mhm.
Do you think like lighting, the importance of lighting as well, might be intimidating to certain people starting off the hobby? Or they'll settle for cheap because it's affordable, and
Yeah,
then
I
stick with
think
that.
yeah, I think you're right there because I think always, whenever you're starting something, you're always
Oops.
weary about how committed you're going to be to
Mm,
something. Yeah,
mm.
you always tend to start off on the cheaper side of things to some degree. Not always the best option to start, to be honest with you, but you do, and then you end up sort of doing that buy twice concept. And I think it's kind of like people's way of just gauging themselves into a new hobby and finding out whether it's for them or not. They like the initial idea of it all. They like the visual side of it all, and the aesthetic look that it can create in your home. But then it gets down to the point where it's all about affordability, and what can you afford?
Yeah,
Can
man.
you sustain it long term? Is this something that you're really interested in doing? And at the same time, you're looking at other areas, you're joining forums, you're joining groups, you're doing this, and you're learning more very
That's the good
quickly,
thing.
very
You
fast.
might get a hook up in there.
Yeah, definitely. And then again, we say affordability. There is the
Mm,
second-hand market. A lot of
mm.
people are selling items second-hand. There's a lot of good resellers out there. There's a lot of bad resellers
Yeah.
out there.
All right, but get this here, bro. You know my biggest fear with my lighting fixture on my tank at the moment. With like the fluval I had, the little box thing, it was
Mm.
about under 100 liters. I had two extra return pumps in there. They cost me about 50 quid.
Yeah.
Yeah?
So you upgraded the pumps in
Yeah, I
there.
upgraded the pumps, but I
Yeah.
bought two. I bought two of the upgraded ones. So I had like two spare basically.
Yeah.
I can't afford to buy two more Ecotech pumps, just have
Mm.
their spare, bro. And I can't afford to buy a new generation or Gen 6 LED if mine was to go. I'm thinking, bro, and that's why I think a lot of people in this hobby are facing where they have the system set up, and if something was to break like lighting and that, man,
Mm.
it'll
Where do
be
you go?
yeah. Where do you go? Do you go onto the forums? I think forums would be a good shout, but it's
Yeah.
about the P's as well. Can you spare the P's to buy a new lighting?
Well, this is it. I mean, I think what's an average? I mean, what's an average light unit costing nowadays? Anywhere between sort of £600 to £800 for a brand new light unit.
Brand
So if
new?
anything goes wrong, that's the kind of budget that you need in order to replace it. Yeah, it's a tough one.
Yeah, man.
It's the same with everything. It's everything's going up in price, and it's kind of gets to the point where, for me, that's where I think we've lost quite a few reefers in the last few years due to things just not being affordable anymore.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's not so much they can't afford it; it's because they don't want to pay out on it no more because they don't justify the increase or the amount that they need to pay for something anymore because whether they've lost interest or they've got other priorities that need to be looked at. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's a shame because in some ways it's almost outpricing itself to some degree. The hobby it's getting to a point where you just said you look at replacing a light unit or a pump, for instance, and if you want to stick with those particular
It's a
brands
lot
and
of
things,
P's, boy.
it's a lot of money. It is a lot of money, and it was initially a fair amount of money at first. But obviously, when you see a starting price for a product range and then you see the current price, you kind of always try and do that thing. Where's the justification? Why is
Yeah,
it so expensive? Why has it jumped so much in a year, 18
yeah,
months, for instance? We do that with everything, I think, but
yeah. But
this game's tough because they're all pretty much within the same sort of area when it comes to lighting. And you look at the technology that's
yeah,
involved, some may do a little bit more than others, but
and that's what I was about to say. Yeah, because the technology, you need to see that whatever the lighting or the light fixture does
Mm.
is what your animals require. So this is something I do, yeah, and I think Nick Chan will take credit for this one. He said to me every time you ask about lighting, pester the person. Just keep on pestering the person. This why. Tell me why this is this way.
Yeah.
So does it take all the spectrums apart from UV? I know you about UV. Can use this for SPS.
Mm.
Can use this for LPS. What's the controllability? What's the reliability? Does it contain the spectrums that will help grow flesh?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, yeah, but I'm starting to ask this question because sometimes when I speak to you about lighting, you look at me yeah, too many questions.
Yeah, so with that information out there now, it's obviously all self-explanatory, and it's all there for most reefers just to sort of unbox it and just
Mm.
get on with it now. To be fair, so yeah, there wasn't really too much to play around with. It's whether you're a tinkerer. If you want to tinker with everything, then you're gonna.
I'm a tinker.
But most of the time, you open the unit, you plug it in, hang it, do whatever you want to do with it, download the app, whatever it is that you need to run the light, go into its settings, find said schedules, blah, 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 initiate them, activate them, away you go. And that's what it should be
Yeah,
like.
yeah.
You should just stick to that, and that's it.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of, if you want to just sort of tinker a bit more, then you've got that sort of, there's that spectrum, there's that wavelength.
Do you think that certain times we tinker too much with
Yeah,
LED lights?
way too much, man. Way too much.
Yeah,
It's kind of like it's like looking for that golden chalice, you know. It just doesn't. It just there isn't really a right or a wrong way. It's the way that you, because this is how we reef nowadays.
mm,
It's how you aesthetically like the look of your aquarium.
yeah, yeah. Because back in the day, I used to go for like when I just got LEDs, which just blues, bro, for like from 7:30 in the morning to 7 at night, 12 hours, 12 hours
Still
schedule,
is,
blue.
and it still is for many people. Many people will still just do blue only. They will
Yeah.
just use the blue wavelength only,
Mm.
and if that's how they choose, that's how they choose. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like the bluer look, and it's nice to see those
Mm.
fluorescents in the
The
evening.
chorus pop, especially the LPS, isn't it?
It does. They all pop,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's sort of kind of like, and in a way, it's a way of seeing achievement, because I often sometimes look at the tank from top down, bird's eye view, because for me that's the best way to view your corals, always will be, and you can see how pigments and different colors are coming through, whether it be because certain things that you've specifically
Hmm.
changed because you wanted to in order to see if you could promote a said
Yeah.
fluorescence, for instance, working.
But look, all right, not cutting you off here. Look at this, yeah. When I first started SPS
Yeah,
and LEDs, yeah,
yeah,
my LEDs were way too high, man. Like when I tell you high, like everything was 100%,
got you.
no polyp was out.
So you were nuking them.
Yeah, yeah, they were just in protection mode.
Yeah,
So I think like when people buy LEDs, yeah, I think they should follow the manufacturer's instructions where they should acclimate their SPS or their corals to it. That's one thing I would say. That's one thing I would say to people.
yeah. No,
I mean, no. But bro, look at this here. All right. Let's stick with me here.
and when you say acclimate, in what way? What do you mean?
All right. So all right then. So if you know you just started a tank, yeah,
Yeah,
you got your first SPS coral in there
okay.
or coral, yeah,
General.
yeah.
Yep,
Whatever it is, this is my thinking here. Whatever it is, and the display and the height of the fixtures at the LFS,
yep.
it's not going to be just like your tank, is it?
No.
So then when you put that new coral into your system, if the app says you start on 20% for a week, I think people should do that and let the corals get used to what's coming out of whatever generic lighting schedule that comes with the light.
Hmm. Yeah, I get your point. So you're
Yeah.
kind of saying, or what you could say really is this: I've gone to my local LFS. I've purchased a new Aquapora
Hmm.
frag. Fell in love with it. Must have it. Cost me whatever.
Yeah.
Don't care. You took it home,
Yeah.
and now you're on the side of caution, thinking, I've just spent said amount of money on this little frag. I've now got to nurture it, look after it, make sure it's going to be
Yeah.
optimized.
Yeah.
So you're overcautious.
Mm.
So you're going to go, right, I'm going to put you on the sand bed for the first week. And then I'm going to slowly bring you up from sand bed to 6 inches off.
I know where you're going with this, yeah. I know where you're going, but yeah.
Then I'm going to go and put you in this placement here and blah, 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 which is great. Right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
fine. But then what you could have done was, when you bought the frag, you spoke to the retailer himself and the guy that you purchased it from. What schedule are you running? What intensity are you running? What wavelength are you running?
Yeah,
And then
but how many people
you
do
can
that, bro?
make the comparison. But this is what you kind of should be doing. This is where you should be asking questions about buying your corals, because you would any other time. You don't go and buy a car and ask no questions and say that'll do. You don't go and buy a new TV and ask no questions and go that'll do, just because you've looked at it. You want to know what it does, what little gadgets and gizmos it's got, what technology's in it, how advanced is it? Is it this year's, last year's? Is it? So you ask questions. So why would you not do that when you're buying coral? It's the same thing. So when you get home, you can say, well, I know he's running SBS AB Plus at 70%. So I'm running SBS AB Plus at 60%. So do you know what? I'm going to put my coral exactly where I want it to stay from the minute I put it in there, and I want him to grow there. So he's going straight in there from day one. Bosh. No problem.
Okay.
No issue.
Well, what about this year? What if the LFS, the coral farm you're going to?
Yep.
The lighting is so high, elevated, that they're running every single channel at 100%.
Yeah.
What do you do then? You can't do that's what I'm saying. Like whatever.
Well, you could gauge it to a degree. I suppose there's an element of common sense. So, like, difference between me and you is you use the RMS mount on, was it 1G4 fixture? Yeah. The Reef Brights. Right. Now I suspend mine using the hanging kit. My lights are 12 inches above the water surface. Yours is 9 inches above the water surface. So there's a little loss there to some degree in percentage of light output, but it's not that much, to be honest with you.
Yeah, but you can use something like a spectra, like what we use to kind of dial it in.
And again, there's obviously, you've now got the PowerWise that's out there from ITC, which again is probably more affordable for people now to measure their own lights. But I think if you're running a certain program or schedule program that has been sort of justified over time and people have given it a lot of good feedback in regards to coloration and growth, then there is no need to be worrying about other factors during your lighting because you have a 5 minutes of boredom, for instance, because you just think, oh, I want to intensify a certain colour.
But the average reefer I'm talking about the average reefer that started, the newbie, the okie.
Yeah. The literally the inner reefer, the one that's got.
You know what I mean? Yeah. You know nothing about it, and you have this new gadget. It says you can adjust this lighting. You see everyone's tanks blue. You have 100% on blue, but don't have the understanding.
Yep.
The average person starting a reef tank will not. It's highly unlikely they'll know so much about.
Yeah.
About lighting.
No, they won't. So realistically,
that's what I'm saying. In that case, you should follow what the lighting instructions say.
They're gonna. Absolutely, yeah. So, like you said, so you're going to download the app or whatever it is to run that light.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, there's built-in programs and schedules already associated to them. So they're going to go with them. It's the first protocol.
Yeah.
Until you spend a bit of time, obviously, chatting to people, because you're going to change it because you've got the playability. We're just never content.
You never. Always tinkering on it.
Happy with just running the most beautiful looking reef tank. There's always something that you're just not happy with, whether it be lighting, whether it be flow, whether it be trace element, whether it be KH level, calcium level, magnesium level, whatever you want to run. We've always got this kind of little niggle that says I'm bored, I'm not happy, I want something to challenge myself over, I want something to concentrate on more so I can spend a bit more time learning about and engaging myself back into the tank again. And because when you reach a certain point in reefing, it is kind of just stalemate to a
It
degree.
is, because you find yourself just doing maintenance on your
Yeah,
system.
it
You
is.
you replenish your dosing supplements. You
Yeah.
send it for an ICP. You clean things.
Yeah.
What else? What else?
Sounds like looking after a child.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's kind of like that. Yeah, when it just started, you have to
Yeah,
change nappies and that.
yeah,
And with lighting, it's another thing that when you start, like you said, like we agreed on, do what it says on the box to start off. But when you
yeah,
start building your knowledge around it, then you can start checking, check things like spectrum levels. But that all depends on what you're keeping in your system as well, isn't it?
yeah. It does. Obviously, light is specific to certain corals. Again, the deeper they are, the bluer it is. The more shallow they are, the more wider it is.
Mm.
So you're in that realm of, do you like your tank more blue or do you like it more whiter? And that's how
Personal
it is.
preference, isn't it?
It is, but I would say nowadays the hobby has definitely swayed more to the bluer looking reef tank, 100%. There's enough research there now from reefers to say that the lights that we're using today are successful. They're growing some lovely tanks, and there's no reason really to tinker anymore. Not like you used
Yeah,
to be fair.
yeah, yeah. It's cool. It's true, because it just opens up like no kind of wounds, but just headache because you may have it correct when you've set it the first time, and then you're
Yeah,
like, let me mess around with this blue a little bit. Oh,
yeah,
it's a bit more white. And then when you check yourself, it's just headache. Things just go downhill, or your
yeah.
corals start reacting negatively, and you're like, oh, I can't remember the last set point I had. So it's kind of like you have to start from scratch, and hopefully you find a sweet spot again.
Yeah, see me, what I tend to do, because I have been a tinkerer, I'm not going to
Yeah,
lie.
yeah, yeah.
If I am about to tinker, I'll go into my app and I literally go to save it and I put the date, which is the current date that we're in at the time when I'm tinkering, before I change anything, to know that that was the last schedule that I was running before I accidentally change or do something and think, oh
That's a
God,
good tip.
I've literally lost that whole schedule now because I didn't save it. So in my user schedule, because I run Ecotech Radians, I've got a list as long as my arms with multiple dates.
Of this, you changed it.
Literally, honestly, of all the times I've actually changed, tinkered, added because I've seen something or I've heard or had a conversation or spoke to John and had a chat with Steve and Peter and Damien, and you go, yeah, put your blues at, do your royal blue at this, do UV at that, do, and you're like, and and then you run it and you think, well, nothing's happening. I'm not patient enough. Right, back to 100% again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's a waste of time. It's just no point. Just, we didn't do it with halides, so why are we doing it with
Yeah,
LEDs?
yeah. I think, yeah, I agree. I totally agree. Things like this. I will go back to the spectra. Like once you've come and you've measured my lights, you said to me, right, Charles, that's good where it is. Yeah, I'm like, okay, cool. I'm just leaving it. I'm just leaving it. I've gone into that habit where I set it and I forget it. There's opportunities of buying new lights. I'm thinking it's just a headache to reconfigure and reestablish. Just leave it. And what I've seen is once I've left it after it's been measured by the spectra, immediately you can see the coral start reacting in a positive light.
Which is the objective,
Yeah, which is
really.
the objective.
Yeah, definitely. Because you've gone from the unknown to known
Mm.
now. You've got the information and the ammunition behind you now to say that, well, I've measured, I've tested, and I've found the point at which I now want to run my tank at. So do not touch.
Okay, so next episode of Tankscape, what we're gonna do is speak about the naming craze of corals that's taking the hobby by storm and increased prices and increasing demand and also all that sort of good stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, cool. All right, nice one. Any bits of information you want to leave the people with before we end this session, bro, or this episode?
No, just keep doing what you're doing and stick with it. That's all I can say.
A man of very little words, Darren. Right, people, this is Darren from Darren for Tankscape. We'll see you next time.
Peace out.
You just say peace out. Oh my god.